For millennia, great waves of salmon have returned from the sea each year to lay their eggs and die in the rivers of the Pacific Northwest. Their bodies feeding all manner of coastal life. But today, salmon face great challenges. Salmon thrive in cold waters, yet the ocean, lakes, and streams are warming because of the fossil fuels we burn. We've cut salmon forests, built cities over salmon streams, and diked and dammed salmon rivers. Given all this, the question for us now is, how can we help salmon? One powerful strategy is to focus protection on the best of what's left, protecting the rivers where salmon numbers are still strong, their habitat healthy. Salmon conservationists call these places salmon strongholds. The Harrison River, a 2-hour drive east of the city of Vancouver in southwestern British Columbia, was the first area in Canada to be designated a salmon stronghold. And that caught our attention. It's a bright morning in early December. My brother Tim and I are driving east from Vancouver across the rich farmlands of the Fraser Valley. The low morning sun lights up quiet sloughs, fields, cottonwood forests. We're heading to the Harrison River. We've heard the salmon are running, and the eagles are everywhere. The Harrison River is part of the giant Fraser River system, and the Fraser River is one of the great salmon highways of the world. After tumbling out of its canyon that cuts the coastal mountains, the Fraser's waters relax into the broad Fraser Valley, to flow leisurely a last 130 kilometers until it pours into the Salish Sea near the city of Vancouver. The Harrison joins the Fraser in the eastern Fraser Valley and drains the waters of Harrison Lake and the Lillooet River, making its waters the second largest tributary to the Fraser behind only the Thompson River. We stop where the highway crosses the Harrison River. Tim and I have been exploring the Salish Sea region together for decades, but the Harrison River, it's new to us. Knowing we're looking into a salmon stronghold is so exciting. Eagles stretch far into the distance, their numbers just astounding. This is what the Harrison is famous for, eagles that come to feed on the salmon. Something else catches our attention. What at first looked like driftwood isn't wood at all, but spawned out salmon, thousands of them. So we head down to take a look. Their big teeth and hooked nose tell me they're chum salmon. Chum are the dominant salmon of many coastal rivers, and this fall the chum run is strong. Oh my! Salmon, eagles, ducks, gulls. These salmon runs are feasts, and the animal energy of this place, it's just electric. Salmon are indigenous to the rivers of the North Pacific Ocean, from Japan and Russia to Alaska, British Columbia, and the western U.S. Several decades ago, salmon conservationists reviewed the health of salmon in all these Pacific Rim rivers. The healthiest river systems are colored blue on this map, where salmon abundance and diversity is high, and the influence of salmon hatcheries minimal. This work identified what scientists called salmon strongholds. A conservation goal became clear: protect the health of these salmon strongholds. In 2009, the Harrison River was designated Canada's first salmon stronghold. The Harrison River hosts 5 major salmon runs. From midsummer through the fall and into early winter, giant waves of salmon head from the sea, up the Fraser, and stream into the Harrison. First, sockeye salmon in August, followed every second year by pink salmon in September, and each October, one of the largest Chinook salmon runs in the world. Then chum salmon, and finally Coho salmon. It's a rare circumstance that so many different salmon species spawn in such close proximity. Because of this extraordinary abundance, for millennia this area has been the rich homeland and fishing grounds for the Chehalis and Skowlitz First Nations peoples. We head back to the car. There's a lookout for viewing eagles freely accessible to the public through the Sandpiper Golf Course just up the road, so we head that way. The Sandpiper Lookout has a broad view across the Chehalis Flats. The Chehalis Flats are a great plain of sand and gravel, crossed by small streams. Eagles are everywhere. Nearby, a juvenile eagle not yet wearing the adult plumage of white head and brown body feathers works away at a salmon head. A young eagle's life is perilous as they learn their foraging skills. Spawned-out salmon sustain the lives of many young eagles through the lean winter months. Each spring, bald eagles nest along the BC coast. But once the eaglets have fledged in early summer, many adults and juveniles head north along the coast to feast on the first of the salmon runs. The earliest runs are in Alaska, so the eagles head there first. Successive runs shift southwards throughout the fall, and eagles follow them south, feasting as they go. The Harrison River is among the southernmost of these big salmon runs. Because of the 5 different salmon species that return each year, the Harrison has a continuous series of salmon runs from September to February that support the world's largest annual congregation of bald eagles. As many as 35,000 eagles pass through its fall and winter feeding grounds. My attention shifts from the eagles to Chehalis Flats. This vast gravel plain is a remarkable feature. What is it? And why are so many eagles concentrated here? Chum salmon come up the Fraser River from the sea and into Harrison River that connects the Fraser River to Harrison Lake. The Chehalis River is a major tributary to the Harrison. Over millennia, the channel of the Chehalis River has wandered back and forth where it meets the Harrison River, depositing sand and gravel and creating the broad Chehalis River Delta. The Chehalis Flats is a part of that larger river delta and the present meeting ground of the Chehalis and the Harrison Rivers. I look out across the Chehalis Flats all the way to the channel of the Harrison River. Across the flats flow the many small channels of the Chehalis River. The carcasses of salmon spawning on the flats and upstream in the Chehalis River get washed downstream and trapped in these shallow channels, turning the flats into a giant feeding ground for eagles. The Chehalis Flats, as a spawning ground for salmon and as a feeding ground for eagles, are at the heart of the Harrison River Salmon Stronghold. 10 minutes up the road, we find a fisherman's trail along the Chehalis River as it flows out through the forests of Chehalis Flats. The river's running low and tumbles across wide gravel bars. During winter storms, all these gravel bars are submerged below floodwaters. We come upon a side channel filled with a litter of spawned-out chum salmon, left high and dry after the floodwaters receded. Further downstream, I find a riffle, thick with chum salmon. But it's poignant. The chum are battered. As soon as they enter the river, the shock of fresh water begins the decay of their bodies, and they start to fall apart. They're dying. But an ancient drive pushes them on to spawn in the same waters where they were hatched. Further downstream, in an off-channel pool, we find some chum spawning. In the ocean, the chum are silver, but once in the river, the silver transforms to olive spawning colors. Chum females are marked with a dark horizontal band along their sides, while male chum salmon gain hooked noses, larger teeth, and wavy bands of purple and gray. Below us, a female sweeps her tail, digging her nest. And then the spawning moment. She drops her eggs into the gravels, and males rush in to spray their sperm over the eggs. With all the dying salmon on the spawning grounds, it's easy to overlook the bigger story of new life. Hidden away in the river gravels are millions of salmon eggs. The salmon stronghold is a winter nursery, first for the growing eggs, and then for the hatchlings that continue to live in the gravels as they feed on their yolk sacs. After several months, the young salmon rise out of the gravels, where they depend on the rich insect and plankton life of the stronghold, until they're ready to head downstream to the river's estuary and then out to sea. We head away from the main Chehalis River, looking for the smaller side channels of the Chehalis Flats, and come upon some bear tracks. Clearly, we're not the only ones looking for salmon. A fisherman had tipped us off that the Coho salmon run had started, so we're on the lookout for Coho. We come upon a big side channel. Spawned out chum salmon are everywhere. These side channels are more protected from winter floods than the main river, and so are vital spawning grounds, winter nurseries, and feeding areas for juveniles in the spring. Ooh, I catch a flash of red. A pair of coho are tucked into the edge of a riffle. The female's digging a nest, and alongside her is a big male. Both are in full spawning colors. The female is a bright golden color. We come across another back channel and, oh my, it's full of coho. Wow! Oh my, what beautiful fish. These coho will continue to come into the river to spawn through December and January. Their spawned out bodies feeding eagles and other life through the lean winter months to come.
Okay.
Our plans to paddle down the Harrison through the salmon stronghold, check to see if there are any Chinook salmon still spawning, and get a peek at the Chehalis flats and its eagles as we float by. The launch is a small lake with a channel that connects to the Harrison River. To our right is the marshy northern edge of the Chehalis River Delta. What a great feeding ground for juvenile salmon when they hatch. I watched him head for a beach where the channel meets the Harrison River. We spy a trail to a high vantage point. What a view! Spread out in front of us is the heartland of the salmon stronghold. To the left, the Harrison River flows away from us. This is where the giant Chinook salmon spawn. To the right spreads the broad forested plain of the Chehalis River Delta. Way out across the plain is where we walked the Chehalis River yesterday. And beyond that, out of sight, is the gravel plain of Chehalis Flats, thick with eagles. I turn and look up the Harrison River. Upstream and out of sight, the river spills from Harrison Lake. The giant lake is a critical element of the salmon stronghold. It provides clean water, keeping the river's gravels clear of silt that could suffocate salmon eggs. And the lake protects the river from severe floods that could erode eggs out of the gravel. The lake is so big that even major rainstorms can only cause its waters to rise slowly. We get out on the Harrison River, wondering if there are any Chinook salmon still around. The shoreline gravels look odd, so we pull ashore on a bar to take a look. Oh my, salmon nests! The low waters have exposed the river bottom, but rather than a smooth gravel bar, it looks like a badly potholed road. These are nests dug earlier in the fall by female salmon laying their eggs. And only the giant Chinook salmon could dig holes this big. We paddle on, amazed that all the shoreline bars are potholed with salmon nests. And underwater, salmon nests cover the river floor. They go on and on. The vast scale of this nest building is just amazing. Hidden in the gravels below each nest, thousands and thousands of salmon eggs. Altogether, millions and millions. A truly amazing salmon egg nursery. Oh wow, I pass right over a Chinook salmon carcass on the river bottom. Well, a few late Chinook are still spawning. A few moments later, I spy a huge fish on the shore. Sure enough, another Chinook giant. So far, not a single eagle. Then we see one. Then more. Then the big gravel plain of the Chehalis Flats comes into view. Eagles are everywhere. I marvel at it all. From late summer to midwinter, salmon feed the eagles and so much other life. Bear, otter, mink, ducks, crows, raven, gulls, you name it, all timing their lives to feed on salmon. And somewhere below me, giant sturgeon scour the river floor for carcasses. Cutthroat trout scavenge salmon eggs. Microscopic bacteria and tiny bugs, essential to the river's food web, flourish on decaying salmon. Salmon feed this entire place. On a river bar behind me, a chum salmon wriggles off some gravel. I pause in an eddy and stare down at some loose eggs that have escaped their nest. I look up. Not only is this a feasting place for so much life, it is also a vast salmon nursery. Over the winter, millions of eggs will hatch in the gravels. And in the spring, those millions of tiny salmon will rise from the gravel. They'll feed in the backwaters, side channels, streams, and marshes of this place, growing every day. And then, answering an ancient call, they'll move out into the current and start their journey to the sea. We float along, thinking of the young salmon that will head downstream next spring. But this is a home that calls its offspring back, and in a few years they'll return. Each species knows when. Chum, coho, chinook, pink, sockeye, coming home to make new life, to continue a cycle unbroken. Truly, the Harrison River is a salmon stronghold, and therefore a stronghold for all life.